Opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network.
Hello and welcome to the show. First of all, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today, and if you get the opportunity, please do share today's show. Today's show is probably going to be a little bit emotional for me, simply because anytime we talk about any form of abuse, I become emotional, mainly because I come from an abusive background, growing up with domestic violence in my home. But today we're not going to be talking about domestic violence in that sense. But the violence that we are going to be talking about is human trafficking. I got requests to do a show like this. Ever since I started doing this back in October, I was getting requests from people to say, you need to do something on human trafficking. So I am so grateful that today is here. I'm grateful for the people that are going to come and talk to us today, educate us today, make us more aware of something that's been going on for centuries. I know for some people it may appear that it's new, but when I did my research last night, and I didn't really have to do research for this part, but slavery is a form of human trafficking. Sex trafficking is a form of human trafficking. Labor laws is a part of human trafficking. And I'm not going to go on and on and on and on the list because it's so many things that could fall under that. One of the things that made me a little bit upset is the fact that in my research, I found that over 40 million people globally are affected or are victims of human trafficking. So that's a village, that's a town, that's a state, that's the world. 40 million people. 40 million people are affected. 40 million families are affected. 40 million spouses, 40 million parents are affected by this. Why we can't eradicate this is beyond me, because this is such an epidemic. And I pray that at the end of this show, somebody's life is saved as a result of this. Somebody is more educated as a result of this. I pray that it even piques our level of sensitive nature, because sometimes we can become so desensitized to things, especially when we hear a lot of negativity. I'm also happy to have this platform today because I'm going to introduce a new segment on the Pamela J Show called, and I hope it's a kind of a tongue twister, but I hope I get it right, but it's called Tough Topic Thursdays. And so I'm also happy to have this show today and this topic today because it is our first tough topic, and it's something that we definitely need to discuss, and it's something that we definitely need to bring awareness to, so that the end result could be that we help save somebody's life. Today on the show, I am pleased to have two wonderful women with me today. I'm trying not to look at my paper because I want to get their names right. But we have Jatnna Gomez.
That's right.
And we have Jeanmarie Graves. And these wonderful women have agreed to come on the show to talk about foster care, to talk about the Safe Center that the University of Maryland has. And I'm just excited. And if you are an avid watcher of this show, you know I'm like uber excited in most cases. But this kind of show today, I'm not uber excited in that sense where my excitement is exuberant, but I am excited that they braved the way to come and share with us some knowledge about human trafficking and share experiences that we probably don't factor in our everyday life. So having said that, I'm going to pray and get started, reintroduce my panel, and hey, you guys, I'm going to learn some stuff too. So I hope everybody is okay. If you want to call into the show, the number is 301-429-WBGR. If you want to listen posts on Facebook, I will read them. once again, I'm going to reintroduce the ladies, and they can tell you about the organizations that they are a part of, what they do to help the community, and we're just going to do this. And so human trafficking is sad, and it dates back centuries old. And we have enough money, we have enough power, we have enough people in this society that this should not be going on as long as it has, and affecting as many people as it has. So I hope that if nothing else, it just makes you more sensitive to the point that you yourself want to do something, even if it means that you become a volunteer of CASA. And Jeanmarie will tell you about that. So we're going to get prayed up, we're going to get started, and we're going to make this show make a difference. So, Father, we come before you in the name of Jesus, and we just want to say thank you for this day and this opportunity to speak about such a tough topic. And we just pray that at the end of this show, somebody's life is saved, somebody's daughter is brought home, somebody's son is brought home, and there's a heightened awareness to the epidemic called human trafficking. I lift this prayer up to you in the name of Jesus. Ladies, thank you. Thank you so much for availing. No, thank you for coming. You know, because you can ask somebody to come to do a show like this, and they say, no, we're busy. Yes. Or no, you're little. You know, you're just getting started. But I just appreciate that. Yes, and when people say yes to things like that, for me, it shows their compassionate nature and their heart to get the message out. And that's what's more important to me than anything. And so I am so grateful that you availed yourself and your time to my little/big platform so that we can bring awareness to this. And so I'm going to start with you, Ms. Gomez. So introduce yourself to those people out there and just tell us a little bit of what you do at your organization.
Yes, thank you so much, Pamela. So my name is Jatnna Gomez, as you mentioned. I am a case manager at the University of Maryland Safe Center for Survivors of Human Trafficking. I have the pleasure of working at an organization that provides a wide array of services. We provide legal services, mental health services. We provide advocacy as well for survivors. We have a lot of direct services through our case management team, economic empowerment. So our goal is to provide comprehensive services to all of our survivors.
You mentioned mental health. I'm going to talk about that later on, because I just want to know how it fuses into human trafficking. So be prepared for that. Prepare for that. Because I found that to be very interesting last night when I was reading up on your organization that you do tackle that. And I'm curious to know, because as most of us know, mental illness, mental awareness is heightened. And I want to say lately, but I know it's not lately, but it seems as though more now than ever, a lot of people are dealing with mental illnesses. So I do want to know, how does it coincide with human trafficking? So I'm coming back to you. Okay. And so you, Miss Graves, yes. Who are you, and what is your organization do?
I'm Jeanmarie Graves, so I'm here with Court-Appointed Special Advocates of Prince George's Counties, and what that is, we train volunteers to work with kids in foster care. We get assigned a whole bunch of youth that we can work with, and we train the volunteers to work with those youth one-on-one to provide advocacy for them and whatever's in their best interest. So we go to court with these volunteers. We make recommendations. So these volunteers, they serve as an advocate, a mentor, but a support that's needed in these kids' lives where they may not have that support. And it's so important. It's so important that we have these volunteers, because they might be the one person that's there with them, you know, as they go through different foster homes, different social workers. So it's definitely something that's important and makes a difference. So that's our agency. And
I'm grateful that you have that kind of, or you offer that kind of service, because growing up, I didn't always hear positive things about foster homes. Any kid that's being placed in a foster home, you're hoping for the best for their life. The sad part is that you just have no control over knowing what actually happens after you hand this child over. And so I'm grateful that you do have volunteers coming in.
Yes, and we're always looking for more. So
yeah, she's looking for more.
We're always looking for more. So
please, we will give you an opportunity
Please volunteer.
to volunteer. I actually had a conversation with the young lady who connected us, Miss Montre, who was here in the studio. You can't see her. And I said to her today, I said, I might do that. Where I would find a time, I don't know, but it's kind of tugging on my heart, you know, to maybe give a couple of hours a month, you know. And you just never know how that can not only affect the child's life, but also your life as well, because sometimes you don't know what's missing in your life until you would invite someone else in. So I'm going to pray about that. But one of my first questions is, I want you to explain as best you know how, what is human trafficking? You both can answer that. Because I think sometimes we get it a little mixed up. And I also think that we don't focus on the variations of human trafficking, as I mentioned earlier. So what is human trafficking?
So I guess that was...
Don't rush.
So to put it simply, human trafficking is the criminal exploitation for profit of women, children, boys, girls, men.
Wow.
It can be of anyone.
Wow.
So what we see a lot at the Safe Center is survivors of sex and labor trafficking. So as the words would imply, you know, there is with sex trafficking, there are the aspects of commercial sex. So whether it's through...
What's commercial sex?
Commercial sex can be anything from prostitution.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
right.
all the way through stripping. It can be, and now with the internet, it can be anything in social media. So that would and there are other, you know, parts to it. There is also labor trafficking. So that's the exploitation. That's when someone is either, it's not always taught in the traditional way. Someone is either forced into a working condition where they are paid they're not paid what they were promised. They're not working in the conditions that they were promised, and their ability to remove themselves from the situation is taken away from them through the use of force, fraud, or coercion.
Do you feel that it's on the rise? Like, I mean, I know human trafficking itself is on the rise, but is sex trafficking on the rise as well? Are you seeing the labor laws being violated? Is that on the rise, or just as a whole, all of it is on the rise?
You know, what's great is that the awareness is on the rise.
Oh, great.
The awareness is on the rise, and it's wonderful and it's exciting because we're able to provide that information to the community so that everyone is well informed, so that everyone can be a little bit more familiar with the signs and have something in their toolbox that will direct them to support that person.
Now, I do agree with that. I do agree that I've noticed a more awareness of human trafficking, even though it's been going on for centuries. And so, thank God, people are being more aware. Now, is January an awareness month?
Yeah.
I thought I heard that. I thought I heard that. And so I'm glad to know. So say something about that, because I don't think a lot of people know, because I didn't know that January is deemed
Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Trafficking
So when did that
Month.
happen?
When specifically, I don't.
When it was deemed that,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know it's been a few years now,
Really?
but January was considered the Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Okay, so you're saying that for years it's been like that, but people didn't know. Like, I never knew that until, like I said, I've been trying to do this show for months, and I've reached out to various people, and people actually reached out to me out of state. And so I'm going to do the show again. I'm going to talk about it again because there was a lady in Ohio that she actually was abducted. So I'm definitely going to have her on when we talk about this later on. But she hit me in my inbox one day and said, you know, January is, and I was like, I had no idea. And so I guess we do need those volunteers to help get the word out.
Right, definitely. That's
So
why I
that
appreciate
people
you bringing
can
us
know.
on here
Yes,
to bring
thank
more
you.
awareness. It's
I've been trying, you know, absolutely. I mean, anything to help, because it's happening all too soon.
happening all
And
the
it's in our backyards.
And yeah, I think that's a misconception too, that people think it's, you know, in maybe a strip club or massage parlor, which it definitely happens there, but it could be happening in the house down the street.
In a massage parlor? I had no idea. How's that? How's that happening?
I mean, a lot of places are not licensed, even though I think they're supposed to be. I mean, there's always back ways, I would say, that people, you know, they figure things out. They figure how to get away with things before seeing, you know, the misuse to do certain things. And
Okay,
so
you know what? I take that back. I do remember one of the owners of a football team We won't talk about him, but yeah, I remember
Yes.
that now. Yeah, and
So it happens anywhere, everywhere.
now you mentioned boys,
Right.
so is there a rise of young men being snatched?
Thing is, again, I go back to there's a rise in awareness and recognizing, and we're working really hard to try to detect those signs because interviewing a girl, a female, is not the same as a boy. So maybe we
Interesting.
right. So we always want to be aware of those signs. So when it comes to boys, I'm not sure if it's so much of a rise or more so that we're now focused more on determining, looking for those signs and those indicators.
What are the signs?
It can be anything from you when you know that child. It can be when it comes to a child. It can be that child, you notice that they're not allowed to go to school. You may notice that they disappear for weeks at a time, and they come back with money and things that are out of the blue for that child that you know. It can be that you notice that they're having a 25-year-old boyfriend come and pick them up. And you're
Hey, wait a minute, wait a minute. How old are these children? With a 25-year-old boyfriend?
It happens.
That's a pedophile. That's not a boyfriend.
But it can. So
Depending on their age, I'm saying.
it's very, like Jeanmarie said, it's happening in our backyards, and it's something that as we become more aware of it, our community is able to recognize more and say, you know what, let me ask more questions.
I'm telling you, I mean, I have a friend who I love her. Angela calls me all the time and make sure I get to the car okay, and you be careful and all that, and check the white vans. And I'm not saying anything about the white vans out there. I'm just saying that vans are now almost taboo. It's like you get a little afraid when you see a van approaching you late at night, and so I am glad that people are becoming more aware of their surroundings and aware of the fact that it's happening in our backyard. People are being snatched just like that. I feel, and I'm going to talk about this later on, African American women are abducted proportionately higher than any other races, and so that's not cool. I mean, I do want to know why us so much. What's this desire or satisfaction with us and our bodies? But that's another topic because that's centuries old too. That fascination, But I'm sure that for you ladies, it puts you in a very difficult situation when you're dealing with the kids,
Right.
And you deal with foster care.
Yes.
So what's your experience there?
So, I mean, I have about 20 or so kids on my caseload. And I have a couple of kids who, I'm not going to get too much into it, but they have experienced some type of trafficking, or at least we believe so, or are definitely at risk, just because, kids in foster care, they've already been through so much trauma. They've been abused, neglected, they were removed from their home, to no fault of their own, but they're, more vulnerable.
Traumatized.
They're traumatized, they're more vulnerable, they're more susceptible to somebody being able to, quote unquote, groom them into thinking, I can help you. I can be that one supportive person that you didn't have, and so.
Okay, so not to interrupt you. So
No,
I'm
fine.
just trying to understand. The child is being placed in foster care.
Yes.
And it is in foster care of the adult that you're placing the child's this home that human trafficking is happening or sex trafficking is happening? What's happening?
So what happens with the kids in foster care, there's different placements that they can go to. They can be in a foster home where there's a foster parent who may have been, trained to be therapeutic, to work with the foster youth's needs. There's group homes, there's residential facilities, so that all these kids could be going to live in different places. And as far as trafficking occurring or being at risk for, I mean, these kids are going, they're going to a foster home. They may be there for a couple weeks, a month, sometimes not long term. They're jumping from place to place to place. So depending on their age, it could be them going to different schools. Like I said, they've been through so much trauma, they may go to school, but then not actually stay at school, and then they're susceptible to walking, running away.
So how are you notified that this is happening? So what? I guess it goes back to those signs you were talking
So
about.
going back to the signs, I
Goes
would
back to the
say, I
signs.
mean, at least with the youth that I've seen, I've had some kids who've been on runaway status for more than a few weeks. We try to reach them, their phone's not working, or we get one-word answers. So it's So we have to, Department of Social Services has to make a missing persons
You
report.
do checkups, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We try to, find them, and then a few times they may come back. Sometimes we have kids coming back because somewhere they know that they're not in a safe space. And then we see that
traumatizing. That's adding more weight to the trauma they experience.
Yes, exactly.
And then it diminishes the trust factor in this parent.
And I think we have to remember too, when it comes to trauma has an adverse effect on person physiologically, biologically. So it's not even just, I feel like there's this misconception that, well, why do they choose to do that? Or don't they know better?
Choose to do what? Get into sex trafficking? Come on.
Yes, but that's why I think, again, awareness is so important, because no kid is choosing to be in foster care. No kid is choosing to be trafficked. They're just coming in, whether they were being forced, threatened, manipulated, coerced, whether it's a young girl, 16 years old, they meet somebody who's maybe 21, 22, and they're promising them the world with something they never had before. So they might be all, mushy and nice in the beginning, and then they have them,
Oh my God. I mean, I was talking to someone just the other day, and she gave me a sob story about a young lady. She's a nurse, the lady I was talking to, and her coworker shared a story about a young lady who was abducted with her friend, and they befriended an older person. And this older person, I guess, baited them for a while, a couple of weeks, gained their trust. And then the next thing you know, she's like, do you want to come to a party and bring your friend with you? And the next thing you know, they're in a room.
Right. Yeah, I think, too, sometimes drugs are involved. They are drugged, so sometimes they don't know what's going on. Sometimes...
So are they drugged immediately?
Sometimes it can be. They drugged immediately. Sometimes it just happens, or they force them to take whatever drug it is. Sometimes it happens for survival. So for foster youth or homeless youth, or when they turn 21, their case closes, they don't have the support of anybody, really.
Right.
So if they need a place to stay or feel like they have no other choice, again, I mean, they do that. But under the age of 18, it's automatically child sex trafficking, whether they consent to it or not. So just to be clear on that. And it's also a form of sex abuse in that essence. So they don't choose it.
To me. And so how does the Safe Center help out with all of this that we're discussing today? Because I want to know more about the Safe Center. So how do you help?
Put it on
Where do you come in?
So we come in when organizations, we're community partners, law enforcement contacts us and lets us know, hey, we have someone that we suspect that there may be something going on there, and then we go ahead and conduct a screening. So we
what's the screening?
It says there are several questions that we ask the survivor that we're speaking with, and because we want to make sure at the end of the day our focus is the survivor. So it's not what anyone else wants that may have led the survivor to contact us. We want to focus on what they want.
So do you have psychologists on board?
We have licensed clinical social workers.
Okay,
yes, we do, and they're bilingual. They're bilingual, which is awesome.
I saw that.
Yes.
I saw that in your bio.
So they're bilingual, they're Spanish speaking, and
great.
they're trauma informed. They have wonderful experience, and they, but at the end of the day, every service that we offer the survivor is their choice, because our goal is to not take any choice away from them. They've already gone through that, so our focus is to give them a well-rounded approach to make sure that they have access to the services that they need, whether it's housing, medical care, dental care.
So how long has this program been in? I think a couple of years now?
It was the organization was founded in 2016, and again, it came.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's great.
It was founded on that desire to offer comprehensive services to the community, to make sure that our survivors have one place. They don't have to be re-traumatized by going everywhere and telling their story to request a different service.
Okay. I'm getting ready to take a commercial break in a little bit, but I do want to take this opportunity, and I'm going to provide that later on for you to give contact information, website about your organization, and you as well. So go ahead, Jeanmarie.
Oh, right now? Okay.
Yeah, right now, Jeanmarie. We're going to do it again, too.
So
Pay attention.
So yeah, so like Pamela said, so for CASA, we are looking for volunteers. We want to train volunteers to work with these youth. Definitely men. We're looking for men because we need that male role model figure for so many of our boys.
Wow.
But if you're interested in volunteering, you can go to pgcasa.org, and then there's a link there where there's an application. You fill out the application, and then somebody follows up with you to set up a phone interview, and then we go from there. So please contact us. We're interested in anybody. You don't have to have a psychology or social work background, just somebody who's willing to make a difference and stay committed to that child.
Do you do a background on a volunteer, though?
We do background checks.
Oh, okay.
We do background checks.
Okay. Yeah.
So we don't
need to do that.
We don't accept just anybody, but
good question,
anybody
Pam.
can call and follow up with them. And so anybody who's interested, it's a year commitment. At least that's what we ask for. We understand things come up. We ask for your commitment, at least 10 to 15 hours of work a month, but that would be meeting with the child, talking to social workers, just getting information and a real big picture of what that child needs.
I like that because it takes time to trust.
Yes.
And that's really what you're doing in that time frame is establishing a sense of trust and responsibility.
Right. And yes, exactly. And as far as it comes with human trafficking or any other issue the child might run into, like I said, that CASA might be that one stable person who's stayed with that child. So not only provides that support and help and advocacy, but also that person who they might notice the difference, or that those red flags that may come up that somebody else may not have seen because, workers are changing, or workers may have 5, 10, 20 cases. So, things fall through the cracks. And that's what I love about CASA is that volunteers able to dedicate their time to that one kid and really try to make that difference where they can.
Yeah, I like that too. It's I like that too. But I do want to say one thing or ask one thing before I get to you, Ms. Gomez. But you mentioned the boys, and you're looking for more men, which is great. So is most of the school systems. But you're seeing a rise of boys experiencing human trafficking? And why?
I don't want to say human trafficking specifically. I'm just in foster care. There's a probably even number of boys and girls in foster care in general.
Got you.
And as far as going back to the boys being trafficked, it's hard to say because, like Jatnna said, just so many things are not reported. But there's more awareness brought about it. And also, as far as boys go, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like boys are more targeted also for the labor trafficking side. We talked about sex trafficking, but and which they certainly can be. There's labor trafficking as well that we can't forget about.
Man, wow, that's crazy. Go ahead, Ms. Gomez. You got the follow up.
Thanks, Jeanmarie.
Top that.
So for us at the Safe Center, we just want to make sure that we raise awareness. We have a wonderful website that I'm sure Pamela will put in the end so that you can copy it. Where we have a lot of information for you. We have a lot of resources, and we just want you to be informed as a viewer. So that if you see something, you say something. I know that sounds cliche, and we've heard it before.
It sounds cliche, but go ahead. But accurate.
It is accurate, right? It is accurate. But yes, please become more aware, more familiar, so that when you see what may come about when you're looking around your community, because it is your community at the end of the day, and you want to make sure that you take ownership of that and that you have those connections so that you can help someone. You never know the difference that you can make in someone's life.
I mean, I think sometimes that we take for granted that we are making that difference. I think that we think we need to do this, have that, things in place. And you just don't know what somebody's looking for. You know, that you read to a child. For you, it may have been an hour or two of your time in the day, but to that child, somebody may have never read to them.
Right.
Or read in a manner like I used to do with my nieces and nephews when they were growing up, get animated and change my voice up a little bit. And so for you, that may be small, but to that child, it makes a world of difference.
I know I had a kid of volunteers told me that he took his child out to dinner to, I think, Clyde's or some nicer type of restaurant. And the kid said to him, "This is the first time I've ever been in a restaurant like this."
Oh my God!
It was an emotional, time.
Absolutely.
So definitely, these kids don't have certain experiences that we expect them to know or learn, and so much they don't know. So
Oh, we take for granted because we've had that experience. Right. Did you give your contact information?
No, you're gonna give it at the end.
No, we're gonna give it twice. You wasn't paying attention. You're gonna say that now.
We'll put it at the end.
We'll put it at the end. Oh, the phone number you were talking about. Okay, gotcha. I do want to say this one thing before we go to the break. What is going on? Because the buzz in the air is human trafficking is on the rise because people need organs. The economy is crazy right now. People are losing jobs even though they're saying that the job market is rising. But people are in an economic crunch. And it's been theorized and probably true that, one of the reasons it's on the rise is because people need organs. People need a kidney. People need a liver. They need transplants. And this is an easy way to get that. How do you feel about that? Have you heard that?
I mean, I have heard
studies about that.
I have heard about organ trafficking happening. I don't have any real information about that just because I feel like the sex trafficking piece and labor trafficking piece is more, there's more awareness on that. Right. So I don't have specifics on organ trafficking, but I know it does happen. And of course it's a scary thing to think about.
Absolutely. Because that equates to death.
Right.
Because if you don't have adequate facility for someone to relinquish their kidney, against their will, how do you know you're going to even survive that?
Right.
Yeah, so
it's a scary thing.
We're going to take a brief commercial break. Let everybody gather their thoughts and whoop sigh if you want to. Get some water. And we're going to bring these ladies back to talk more about human trafficking. I've enjoyed what I've heard thus far. And so you've been watching the Pamela J Show, and we'll be right back. See how fast that goes? Okay, we are back. Thank you for coming back to listen in to us continue this conversation about human trafficking. Hope you're getting a lot of information. And I hope somebody out there is thinking about volunteering. I know I am. I'm like, where can I squeeze in some time and commit for 1 year to that? But you just never know how that year is going to make a difference in even your own life and how it's going to make a difference in the life of someone else. So we're going to continue our conversation with the ladies. And like I said, I'm grateful that they're here and sharing their knowledge and expertise about such a sensitive nature. Before the break, we were talking about different types of people, and that was one of my questions. What are the types that people look for when they're looking to abduct someone?
So when you're referring to human trafficking,
Like
who may be, what is the profile of a victim of human trafficking? There is always the, like Jeanmarie mentioned, the grooming process where they may select somebody that's vulnerable, someone that's in foster care that doesn't have consistent supervision. It may have been someone a lot of times when it comes to labor trafficking, someone who needs resources. So someone who has a child that may be sick and they're being promised, if you come here to work, we're able to pay for this and that. You can get health insurance for your child. So that desperation in the victim and that need.
So they prey on their vulnerability.
Yes.
And they reach them at that low moment in life. Because who doesn't need an extra dollar?
Right.
And then before you know it, they're abducted.
Right, and it starts off very charming, like we mentioned with the grooming process. It's not something like sometimes we have this image that is this violent process where that person is just snatched from a white van.
From a white man? Okay.
Yes, a white van. But and that's why for us it's sometimes in the community it's really hard to be able to pinpoint it because we're expecting something else. We're expecting it to be manifested completely differently. Right. Where in reality you can have that Romeo complex, where in the background that person is maybe grooming this child. Oh, you don't need to do this. You don't need, and it starts off like that, like that honeymoon period. And then slowly, that's when it takes the shape of like, oh, well, we have these goals. Can you go and sleep with
forced or aggressive, and even if it's I took care of you for this, so you owe me.
Yeah,
you owe me. We need to pay the rent, and I'm not able to meet ends meet. So,
what kind of psychological counseling do they get after they're rescued or they run away? Because you have a safe center, right? So how does that work? Somebody runs away from their abuser or from being trafficked, and then you take them in?
There is not one profile of the survivor of trafficking.
Okay.
There is not, like I mentioned earlier, we can have a community organization that is interacting with the survivor for another reason. They may have come over and looked for housing somewhere else, and there was something in that conversation with that case manager, that intake manager, where that person felt the need to look for more specialized services, and that's when we will come in and meet, conduct that screening with the survivors, see what their needs are, what are your goals, what is it that we can help you with right now. So it's a process. It's
And as far as
I was coming to you next.
So if I have a youth that I feel like she may have been a victim,
right?
Just because of some things that she said while she was on runaway status, or she said that this guy had me do this and this. She may not see herself as a victim. So many, I feel, victims don't see themselves as that.
What do they see themselves as?
They made the choice on their own, or they're not aware. They're not aware themselves, or they've been so manipulated, or the person just broke down what normal actually is. They feel like that is like the new normal.
Right.
So, but if I see it, or people that are aware of what it actually is, I can then, call Jatnna or somebody else and be like, I feel like this has happened. I think they would benefit from this additional service, additional specialized therapy to help them kind of sometimes like rewire their frame of thinking and to start to see that, maybe I was a victim. But I know Jatnna said to me previously, they'll never ask, are you a victim, of trafficking? We have to try to talk to them in a way that's definitely not judgmental. We can't never be judgmental when it comes to this. I think that's super important.
It is.
What is the length of time of counseling?
As needed. If it took 17, 13, 15 years for that survivor to reach that point, we cannot put a timeline on how long they will need to heal through that process.
Yeah, because it's permanent. It's a permanent level of trauma. I mean, I'm sure there are people who may have experienced this and got some form of therapy for a length of time, and then years later, it triggers. Something triggers it.
Exactly.
And then they got to go back in therapy. Or they have children, and then they become overprotective of their children. So do you ever encounter people who are not in foster care anymore, and they've gone on to become adults, and they come back and need your service again? Or do you continue the process of knowing what happens with people after they leave foster care?
As far as foster care goes, when they age out of 21, technically the case closes, but we've had kids call the office or may call social services and be like, I need this and this, or I'm homeless. So, there's only so much we can do to a certain extent.
You're 18.
Or 21 in Maryland. But we can try to direct them to where to go. And again, for at least the foster youth, that doesn't mean that they're all been a victim of trafficking, but they're just in some type of traumatic situation or homeless, and they just need that extra guidance that they didn't have there before. So we have people call back. I don't have exact numbers or anything like that, but it happens. A lot of youth, they age out. They may have a housing for 2 months, and then it falls apart, and then they need that help in finding a shelter.
How much physical abuse do they encounter? Is there a lot of physical abuse?
So the kids that come into foster care, they all came into care by and by the time we get the case, because we don't get the case initially, we get it after it's already been investigated, but they came in by either physical abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect by their parent or guardian. I don't have exact numbers again, but I feel like it's of all the kids that we get, because we have about maybe 150 to 200 kids, but kids in foster care as a whole, there's at least over 500 kids in foster care in Prince George's County alone. So the kids that we get, you know, I'll probably say more of the abuse. I can't even say it because we get so many new cases all the time. But there's always some type of abuse or neglect that has happened.
Well, let me ask a question. What happens to the foster parent? If they're introducing human trafficking or any sense of trafficking to a child that's left in their care, what happens to them? Are they in jail?
I mean, if the foster parent is the one who's doing it, and we find out, then yes, they should be held accountable.
They should be held accountable.
But a lot of the time, it's not the foster parent's fault. I mean, these kids, we can't tie them down. If they run away and they meet somebody out on the street, then, you know, that's what happens.
Have you had cases where the foster parent was trafficking?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I feel like the state tries to get foster parents that are, you know, they get background checks and everything. They're supposed to be checking in with these foster parents, you know, at least monthly. So I feel like they try to vet these foster parents to do what they're supposed to do. Some are more committed than others, I would say. You know, some might have other motives in wanting to do it.
So what is the age range for... I mean, I know that at 18 or 21 you said, but what are some of the ages of some of the children or kids who are experiencing that?
Every age. So the kids that we get, we have babies who, whether they were born addicted to drugs or they were physically abused in some way by the parent, all the way up to when the case closes at 21. So we have kids every age coming in, boys and girls. It varies.
So what else does your organization do?
Well, we have the benefit of taking it, our clients in regardless of nationality, age, or gender. So that's a wonderful opportunity that we have there to reach, like maybe if they've aged out of some of the services, we're still able to work with them. So and again, we go back to that holistic approach to services. We want to make sure that there is a safe place where that survivor can obtain the services that they need. The services are met throughout. So like we have the economic empowerment where if that survivor's goals are to get their GED, or to, you know, complete college courses to become a CNA. We have someone that works with them on that from the moment of having, you know, to identify what it is that they want to study to the point of applying for it, preparing for the interview, to close, to prepare for that interview. So it's a holistic approach to services that we offer.
I hear that when people are abducted through human trafficking, that they may go from one state to another state to another state to another state. So you can't trace where they are. So how do people break away? How do they give help? The story that I was telling you earlier about the nurse who shared with me about her coworker's friend or neighbor. The young lady who got free, she had begun to track whatever the abductors were doing. She would listen in intently to their footsteps. And what happened was they had a dog, and one day she walked the dog out and got help that way. And thank God they arrested the guys. It was more than one. But it's just, I don't want to use the word scary, but we'll use the word aware. You know, it's just happening too fast, happening too soon, happening in our backyards. And what do we need to do to help eradicate this?
I mean, definitely awareness about the topic, seeing the signs. I mean, reading up about it, not just listening right now, but following up and really reading about it, bringing awareness. You know, it's telling other people that you may know. You know, there's always workshops or something going on in the community, but also, I mean, bringing awareness in other ways as far as not even just awareness, but I guess the state and policies and laws and everything, because
so each state is different.
Each state is different, which is, you know, an issue all in itself. But I mean, in Maryland, so there's something that's called safe harbor laws.
I've heard that. And what is that?
So basically, under the age of 18, the child is automatically a victim. There shouldn't be a criminal. They shouldn't be charged with prostitution or anything because
forced into it.
They're forced into it.
They're forced into it.
That's not necessarily the case in Maryland. It's, I mean, there's kids who have been arrested, and but then later it's been figured out that they're the victim. But in Maryland, that's not in effect, the safe harbor law in Maryland.
It's not in effect? Why not? Okay,
So
we need to work on that.
That's one thing that we
need to work on that. Let me ask you a question. Is Maryland the only state that have like a safe center like you do?
No, I mean, the wonderful thing is that we have this type of services pretty much throughout the country.
Okay,
so
great.
We have,
great.
And we're able to make those connections sometimes. We
Okay,
have
great.
clients that are they have family in New York and they want to relocate there. So
Okay,
we
great.
assist them in that process and also connect them to services there.
Okay,
and
great.
also the hotline too, the trafficking hotline.
Yes.
They have resources in every state on if you call
Okay.
where they can kind of direct you.
And why don't you give us that number? It's an inside joke. She made sure we had that number when she first got here. Why don't you do the honors?
Okay, I will. And it's gonna be from memory. It's 1-888 373 7888.
Good job.
You can also text as well.
Yes,
You
you
have
have
a
a
text
texting
number.
component.
And what is this number? What is this?
The National Human Trafficking Hotline.
And say the number again.
She's trying to catch me. It is 1-888 373 7888.
Okay, good. So what happens when someone calls this number?
So when a survivor calls that number, they explain what they're looking for.
Okay.
And they're connected to services that way if that's what they're looking for at the moment.
What if they
whether
need
it's
somebody to come rescue them?
If it's a situation where their safety is compromised, that and I don't want to speak for the national hotline,
Right. Please don't.
They would walk that survivor through to talk to them to make sure that they're in a safe situation. So whether it is calling 911 at the moment, like where are you, where
Right.
are you, so there are different tools that they use in that sense. But
Are there any reported deaths? Foster care, just
I mean, I can't say for foster care, but I know it has happened.
okay. Let's talk about that.
Where you see in the news that maybe
Right.
they were a victim and they were killed or overdose or something like that. I actually went to a human trafficking, or it was International Human Trafficking Conference in Ohio in October actually, and the one speaker there who's a professor over there, Celia Williamson. She was a great speaker, great presenter, but she actually wrote a book too. I think it was called "Grab Your Seat at the Table" or something like that. But in there, she actually documents how she grew up in an area who wasn't the best area, so very vulnerable to different situations, whether it's drugs, trafficking, whatever. But she talked about having friends that I think 2 of them ended up being killed in the trafficking.
Do you ladies feel that it happens on college campuses as well?
it happens everywhere.
It happens everywhere.
It happens everywhere, and that's the obscure nature of the crime. That it's something that yes, it can be sometimes in plain sight if you know what to look for.
Right.
But it happens everywhere. It happens at the nail salon where you get your nails done. It happens, if at the little restaurant in the corner. It can happen
At the
anywhere.
metro station.
Right. It can happen anywhere. That someone out there is going through things that you may never imagine just from looking at them.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's I don't want to use the word scary, but our sensitivity nature is heightened as a result of human trafficking. Like I said early in the show, if you're just tuning in, January is the month of what?
Human trafficking.
Human trafficking. Now, I didn't know that, and I'm sure, guys, you didn't know that either, so I'm glad that January is deemed that. And I think, what did Montre say, 2010? 2010. Who knew?
But over the past few years, I feel like social media and technology has really been able to increase all that awareness.
Right.
Now, we didn't talk about social media, but what role does social media play in because to me, it's a part of the reason why it's heightened.
Yeah.
So
Create a market. It can create a market.
Okay, so let's talk about that with social media, because there's a level of trust factor that we haphazardly put on social media. Like we're friends with people we've never met,
Right.
And so let's talk about how social media can be a driving force for this increase of human trafficking.
I mean, I think it's
Either one.
I mean, social media, I feel like definitely impacts anybody, anywhere,
Right.
during any time. We I've seen kids, post provocative pictures.
I have seen that. I have seen that.
Or, people have these kids post these provocative pictures.
Yeah.
And, there's all different sites. Like, of course, Craigslist was the, I guess, original, I don't want to say original, but, being able to find escorts or something like that.
Craigslist?
Yeah, they had that on their back page. Was a very popular site. The government, I think FBI shut that down. But
right.
you know what? When something's shut down, something else always comes up. So there's so many different sites or apps where a predator or somebody could contact these kids.
I think
or
that,
whoever.
and I could be wrong on this, but I think that social media reduces one's trust level or strengthens one's trust level is what I'm trying to say. I think that we just trust people so easily on social media as opposed to someone that I see day to day. I just think that, it's easy to lure people in as a result of being their friend on social media and just wooing them, like you were saying earlier, wooing them. And so what do you have to say in regards to social media and its impact on human trafficking?
I mean, social media can create the platform to either groom the potential victim.
Right.
It can also serve as a market for the exchange, and we have seen that.
What do you mean by that?
It's a market where because at the end of the day, human trafficking is an industry. It's an industry where there is
a money
that
making
commercial
industry.
trade.
Yeah.
A money making industry.
Like drug trafficking.
Like drug
anything,
trafficking. Yeah, it's a money making industry. I mean, you don't care about the individual. They're just a product to you. They're just a product to you.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry,
No,
continue.
it's okay. And when you guys mention an industry, it's a $150 billion industry.
What?
Yeah.
Actually,
Human trafficking
I
is
think it's ahead of
$150
drug
billion?
trafficking, actually.
I believe
I think it's
so.
ahead
Are
of
you
drug
serious?
trafficking now.
Can you say that again? I mean, no, seriously.
150 billion,
150 what?
Billion.
Billion
That's
dollars?
worldwide, obviously. Yeah.
Get out of here.
So
$150 billion industry.
Yes.
And there are so many people who are economically stressed right now, which I've said earlier about the organs being stolen and things of that nature because people are financially stressed.
Yeah.
Oh my God, $150 billion industry. That's astounding to me. And they're shipping people globally.
yeah.
All over the world. Somebody in the United States can somehow be in a foreign country within minutes. And to me, they have a system and how they do things.
Right.
What have you heard about the system?
It's organized.
Yeah, I agree. Very much organized. Because like I was saying earlier, it's like you're abducted in one state and within minutes, you're
I
in
feel
the
like,
next state.
it's a whole, I don't want to say underground system, but I mean, there's people at different levels. I mean,
Wow.
that can recruit. Even they may have had a victim and they groom them so much that they become the person who recruits.
And to me, it's almost like they're grooming such young people because some of the people that are doing the luring is almost the same.
Yeah.
It's your peers.
I
It's
mean,
your same
usually,
group.
most people who have been trafficked or become the traffickers, they were involved in some way.
Wow.
Or I know,
I have heard that.
I don't even want to give a percentage, but it's definitely over 60% of people who've been a victim or a trafficker, they were involved, they're in foster care or child welfare system or were abused or, so they already have this trauma with them and experiences. So
Do you feel that's a little misplaced trauma? Are they not so much masking their pain, but have they shifted their trauma? Because now they're an employee, for this organized business.
I mean, trauma shows its way shows it in different ways. There's like they form what they call like a trauma bond. So you can kind of compare it to in a way like domestic violence or intimate partner violence, where he's doing that because he loves me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you justify the behavior of your
right, and
traumatizer.
then you may not know anything else after that.
You may not know
or
anything
you don't
else
know
after
what could come after that, but
Right.
at least you know what's happening right now.
Well, there's a fear factor involved in all that. In order for them to trust you, they must control you.
Yeah.
And make you afraid of them to the point you don't want to run away.
Right.
And then now they've led you to believe that, you can help me get more girls. And money comes back into play with that. That's what that $150 billion, that is sick to me. that we are so sick in our minds that one's life is not even valued. One's young life is not even valued to the point you're not even looking at this person and looking at them as a human being.
Right.
Do you get emotional in your job? I mean, I would. I get
asked that a lot. I mean, there's definitely days where I'm just like, oh, this is terrible. But it's also horrible to say that I've been doing it for so long. I don't want to say I'm used to it, but I just know how to work through it, I guess. When I first came into social work, this was 13, 14 years ago, I wanted to, go help and save the day and save the kid and do everything I could. But,
save them.
And then either they didn't reach their full potential or something happened, and I was so disappointed and so upset, or just seeing a case, I was like, how could a parent do this to their child? So, I mean, but I've learned to try to, work through all that, and thankfully,
do you get therapy?
No,
Have
but
you had therapy?
No,
do you need therapy?
Maybe, you know what? Everybody probably needs some type of therapy, right?
Do you need therapy?
But thankfully, all my friends are social workers.
You get free therapy.
Yeah, so we always talk to each other about,
Yeah. When I was at Howard, I have a degree in psychology, and one of the things they said was if you go on to become a PhD and you become a clinical psychologist or a psychologist, you need a psychologist yourself, because you need to digress and you need to get it out, all of that off.
It's always good to talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
And there's
you
always
can take on somebody's burden.
Yeah. And there's a stigma with mental health, and it doesn't have to be that way.
We did not talk about mental health. Thank you very much. So, what role, you mentioned mental health earlier, what role does mental health play in human trafficking?
In terms of,
if you're not in your own right mind, if you are maybe bipolar and need medication, or something's going on with you, you deal with mental health. So how does your organization help with that? You tell me what you do for mental health or about mental health in this topic.
So mental health goes back to the vulnerability piece that we've talked about over and over, because you have that piece that if there is something that makes that person vulnerable, of course they may be more susceptible to this type of abuse. But in our organization, like I mentioned, I say holistic, because that's what we do. We have wonderful clinicians that provide services. If our survivors are ready, if they're there, they're open to that service at the moment, we have our clinicians that are there to provide that service for them. As case managers, our job is always to provide that emotional support. But anything that goes beyond that, we have wonderful clinicians that will step in and work with our survivors.
I just get saddened at the fact that people prey on other people's vulnerability and weaknesses. If you know that somebody grew up in a deprived environment, who are you to come in and dangle a carrot in the front of them and they trust you and then you take advantage of that? That's the part that tugs at my heart, because you're taking advantage of someone's vulnerability and you're really abusing them. And then you're changing the trajectory of their life permanently. Permanently, because you can mask your pain, but how is your pain going to rise up later on in life when you're trying to be a holistic human being? You just want to live your life. Here you are going about your day, and the next thing you're thrown in the back of a van.
To piggyback a little bit on what Jeanmarie said about self-care, and when I think of our survivors and what pushes me to do the work that I do, is that at the end of the day, they're survivors. So I never like to take anything away from, yes, they may have a vulnerability, but at the same time, they have strength to have made it to this point. And I always choose to focus on that there is something that they bring to the table, whatever it is. It may not be what I initially wanted them to bring to the table, but they bring something. They've survived something. They have something to teach us. And I always like to think of that. I always like to think of that to focus on the survivor and
I like that.
Their experience.
Because it gives them hope.
And they give me hope. They give me hope in what I do.
What are some of the things that you ladies, I'm gonna say you guys, that you ladies learn from your victims, the survivors, and your foster kids? What are the things they teach you guys?
My goodness, from the slang that they currently have.
Personal slang.
I do not want to embarrass myself.
Oh, no.
But they, a lot of the survivors that I've worked with are great at leveraging their resources.
Okay.
So whether it's we're running around breaking our heads trying to find a place for them to sleep tonight and shelters and everything, and they're like, you know what, I called this friend and I check and I can stay on their couch and then tomorrow we'll figure something out. So they leverage those resources.
I think their resilience, like whether it's the foster youth or victims of trafficking, they've been through so much, but the kids who are able to get out of that and get the support they need, the resources they need. I mean, it's encouraging, and I feel like commendable for somebody else to be like, they got through this.
Yeah.
Do
they come back and sometimes talk to the other survivors?
I mean, I'm not sure about I worked with kids when I was in New Jersey. I worked at a group home there, and I still have some of my kids from there. I reached out to them, or they still have contact with the kids that live with them, and are thankfully doing
very
pretty
well. Thank God for that. We're almost at the end. I want to thank these ladies again for coming on the show. I've gotten so many posts from people joining in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As you can see, this is so serious, and it's hitting on a lot of hearts. It's making people more aware, and I hope that everybody now knows that January is the month to bring more awareness to human trafficking. Look out for your surroundings. Don't take things for granted. Don't take the fact that you normally walk to your car alone. If you leave late at night at your job, get that security guard to help you. Don't take things for granted, because if it's just you, it's easier, right, for them to take you, right?
Right.
And so we're going to give you ladies 2 seconds to shout out your information again, and then we're going to close out. So
I'm Jeanmarie Graves, CASA Supervisor, Court-Appointed Special Advocates. We advocate for kids in foster care for their best interests, and we're looking for volunteers. So please go to our website, pgcasa.org, or just follow up with anybody from there and apply, and that's about it. Thank you.
And you? Quickly.
Jatnna Gomez, Case Manager, University of Maryland Safe Center. Was that quick enough?
Yes. Thank you guys for tuning in, and just, pray for people and be more aware, and spread the word that January is the month.
Yes.
That we need to make everybody know that we need to be aware of this epidemic, and we need to do whatever we need to do to eradicate it. Until next time, you guys be blessed, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Wasn't that fun?
It was. It went fast.
It went fast.